Alex stood at the edge of the landing platform, staring at the distant, swirling clouds of the alien planet beneath him, his heart pounding in his chest. His thoughts were a mix of excitement and fear today. He was about to face the most dangerous test the universe had to offer. Humanity had always prided itself on its adaptability, but here on this remote swamp world that would be put to the ultimate test, the invitation had been brief, an encrypted message from an unknown source, inviting him to participate in a galactic survival competition, a test unlike any other he'd ever encountered. Humanity had been chosen as one of the representatives in this competition, but only one would survive and thrive. The rest would perish and become mere examples of failure. Alex had no idea what he was truly walking into, but the prospect of winning had driven him here. His feet shifted restlessly on the metal floor as the countdown began in the cockpit, his voice a mix of nervousness and determination. He spoke to the onboard AI, confirming his gear and systems were in order. The swamp world was called Drexer, a place where survival meant becoming something more than human, becoming a creature of the swamp itself. The AI responded with the final instructions for the landing sequence, a gentle voice that seemed so out of place. Given the dangers ahead, Alex was as ready as he could be. And then the hatch opened with a blast of wind and moisture. The swamp's pungent air rushed in thick with the scent of wet earth and something far more alien. Alex took a deep breath and stepped forward, his boots sinking slightly into the soft, muddy ground beneath him. The landscape stretched before him, an endless expanse of tall black trees, twisted in impossible shapes, their branches reaching like skeletal arms through the haze of fog that hung in the air. The swamp was alive with movement. The distant croak of unseen creatures echoed across the humid air, and Alex felt a chill run down his spine. The predators were already here, and they were watching him with eyes he could not see. His task was simple: survive or die, but that simplicity masked the true complexity of the test. To survive in this world meant more than just hiding from danger. It meant becoming part of the ecosystem around him. The creatures of Drexer had evolved over eons to blend into the environment, to become part of the very swamp they called home. To do that, Alex would need to use every ounce of his intellect and skill to adapt and survive. The tools he carried were basic but necessary survival gear: a knife, a few medical supplies, and the strange device provided by the Federation, designed to help him blend in with the alien creatures and flora around him. He could already feel the weight of the task ahead. His hands tightened around the device, a small camouflaging suit that would allow him to mimic the colors and patterns of his surroundings. It was humanity's only advantage in this ruthless environment. Alex had never been the strongest or the fastest, but he had always been good at thinking his way out of situations. This was no different. He just needed to keep his wits about him and trust his training, no matter how strange or dangerous things might get. As he took his first step deeper into the swamp, he realized how completely isolated he was. His communications gear flickered once, then went silent. He was on his own, no support, no help, just him against the swamp. He could feel the weight of the silence pressing in around him. His thoughts were the only thing that broke it. As he moved further into the unknown, Alex's feet squelched in the thick mud. As he ventured deeper into the swamp, the humidity in the air was almost suffocating. Each breath felt heavier than the last. The sound of distant water splashing echoed from somewhere far off. He couldn't tell if it was a creature or the shifting of the swamp itself. The trees above twisted in unnatural angles, their branches thick with thick moss that dangled like tattered curtains, obscuring what little light filtered through the dense cloud cover. It was disorienting. There was no sun, no stars, no sense of direction, just this oppressive haze and the ever-present feeling that something was watching him. Alex checked his camouflaging device, a small handheld module that would adapt to his surroundings and mimic them. It was one of the few pieces of equipment he had been given, but it was essential to survival. The last transmission from the AI had advised him to blend in with the environment to avoid detection from the swamp's native predators. The creatures here had evolved to use camouflage as both defense and hunting tactic, and Alex needed to do the same if he hoped to survive another moment. Alex activated the device and felt it hum faintly as it powered up. His skin began to tingle as the machine emitted a low-frequency pulse, and slowly the world around him seemed to shift the device, allowed him to merge with his environment, his body's colors and textures morphing into the same shades as the swamp plants and trees. He looked down at his hands, watching them blend with the brownish-green undergrowth of the swamp. His body was no longer just human, it was becoming part of the alien world. But despite the effectiveness of the camouflage, there was an unsettling sensation, something at the back of his mind, telling him that he was not as hidden as he thought. There was something else here, something more attuned to this place, that might see through his disguise. The noise of the swamp was deafening croaks and hisses, punctuated by the occasional splashing of something large moving in the waters. He moved cautiously now, with every step taking care not to disturb the fragile balance of his new camouflage. He had no idea what kind of creatures lurked in the shadows, but he could feel their presence everywhere. Every rustle of the reeds and every ripple in the water sent his heart racing. After what felt like an eternity of slow, careful movement, Alex came to a small clearing. The air was thick with mist, and an eerie quiet had fallen over the swamp. He knelt by the edge of a small pool of water to drink, not trusting the murky depths, but needing to quench his thirst. Just as he was about to take a sip, a sudden rustling from behind froze him in place. His heart skipped a beat, and his eyes darted around, frantically searching the thick mist, but he saw nothing. The rustling grew louder, and then a shadow appeared from the fog, moving with predatory grace, a large creature with sleek black scales and gleaming red eyes. It was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. Its body was long and serpentine, with a jagged ridge of spines running along its back. It stopped just a few meters away, its eyes locking onto him. Even though he was completely camouflaged, the creature had sensed him. Somehow it was staring straight at him with an unnerving intelligence. Alex's breath caught in his throat. He had been spotted. Now the creature was circling slowly around him, its eyes never leaving his body. Alex's mind raced. What do I do? How do I escape? He realized with growing horror that his camouflage might not be enough to hide him from every creature here on Drexer. The swamp was alive in ways he had yet to understand, and the test had just begun. The creature's eyes lingered in the space around him, as if it could sense something was amiss. The tension in the air was palpable, each second stretching on forever. Like the moment before a storm broke, Alex could feel the weight of the predator's gaze on him. His heart thudded in his chest, and every part of him screamed to run or fight. But he remained still, his body barely moving, his breath shallow and controlled. The swamp was alive with the sound of the creature's slow movement. It sniffed the air and then shifted its weight. The ground beneath him vibrated with every step. The beast took Alex's mind, raced through all the survival tactics he had learned in his life, but none of them seemed to matter here. Nothing from Earth was useful against this alien hunter. He was in its territory, and all he could do was hope the camouflage would be enough. As the creature took another step closer, he held his breath, every instinct telling him to move. But he knew the second he did, the game would be over. It would sense him and strike with a speed he couldn't possibly match. Alex stayed motionless for what felt like an eternity. Then the creature's gaze shifted, its eyes no longer focused on his hiding spot. It was moving away. Alex didn't dare let out a breath. He remained perfectly still, waiting for a sign that the danger had truly passed. The creature continued to lumber through the swamp, its massive form blending back into the fog and shadows. Alex's muscles ached from the tension, but he remained frozen, unwilling to risk moving until he was certain it had gone far enough. Time seemed to crawl, and the seconds dragged on until finally he dared to move ever so slightly. He exhaled a breath that he hadn't realized he had been holding, and then carefully peered through the dense foliage. The creature was gone. The swamp had returned to its eerie silence. For a moment, Alex couldn't believe it. He had survived the first test of the swamp, but his relief was short-lived. The danger hadn't passed, it had merely shifted. He still had no idea what other predators were lurking in the shadows, or how long he could rely on his camouflage suit to protect him. The hunt had only just begun. Alex rose to his feet slowly and cautiously, testing the ground beneath him for any signs of movement. The faintest rustle of the leaves made him freeze in place, and he listened for any change in the sounds around him. His mind shifted into survival mode once again, every sense alert, his thoughts clearer than ever. The swamp wasn't just a place to hide, it was a place to learn, a place to adapt. Here, survival was about more than simply waiting for danger to pass. It was about becoming part of the ecosystem around him, becoming something more than human, something able to blend in with the creatures that ruled this alien world. The next step would be finding food, and water resources were scarce in the swamp, and it was clear that if he didn't learn quickly how to live off the land, he would not last long. His hand went instinctively to his pack, checking his supplies, and finding that most of his gear was intact, he had what he needed to begin the next phase of his test. Survival was a matter of adaptation, and the longer he spent here, the more he realized that survival meant becoming part of the swamp, or becoming its next meal. The next few days blurred together in a haze of constant tension. Alex moved through the swamp with a new sense of purpose, learning from every encounter with the alien world around him. He had come to realize that simply hiding wasn't enough. The swamp demanded more. It demanded transformation. His camouflage suit had proven effective, but he could no longer rely solely on it. He needed to think like the creatures that lived here. He needed to become one with the swamp in ways that went beyond mere disguise. Alex began experimenting with the alien plants around him, using them to craft new tools and weapons. He discovered that some of the thicker vines could be twisted into crude ropes, and the sharp leaves of certain plants could be fashioned into knives. He didn't have much, but what he had was enough to start his adaptation process. He fashioned a crude spear from one of the long branches he found and began practicing with it, using the swamp's murky waters as his target, testing his accuracy and strength. His hands were sore, but he was learning quickly. His senses began to sharpen in ways he hadn't anticipated. Every rustle in the distance, every faint splash in the water became a signal to him. He could feel the presence of other creatures, even when they were hidden from view. A soft breeze might bring the scent of something nearby, and his eyes had begun to pick up on the subtle shifts in the shadows. It was becoming clear to him that the swamp was not a place to hide. It was a place to become a predator, to be both part of and above the environment at the same time. Alex could feel the change in himself. With each passing day, his body was adapting to the environment, his legs growing stronger from constant movement through the thick swamp mud. His skin began to darken and toughen to match the earth around him. He could feel the subtle change in his instincts as well. He had learned to sense danger before it arrived, to track his prey with the same silent intensity as the creatures he had once feared. It was then that he encountered a new kind of challenge in the form of an alien creature, a massive six-legged beast with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. It was a hunter like him, one of the apex predators of the swamp. But it wasn't just a mindless killing machine. This creature was intelligent. Its eyes scanned the environment with purpose, and when it saw Alex through the mist, it froze for a long moment, as if assessing him. Alex knew that he was not just another animal in the swamp to be hunted by this creature. He had become something different. He was a threat, not just prey. He crouched low, letting the creature's gaze wash over him as he blended into the surrounding foliage, using every ounce of his camouflage abilities. The creature stepped closer, sniffing the air, its body tense with uncertainty. It was trying to figure out what Alex was, what kind of creature he had become. Alex knew that he couldn't back down now. He had to act. He had to show the creature that he was not weak, not easy prey. He held his ground, watching the creature's every move, waiting for the perfect moment. His heart raced, but his body remained still, every nerve fired with anticipation. When the creature made its move, Alex acted in an instant. He moved with a speed that surprised even himself, launching from his position and using his spear to strike with deadly precision. He aimed for the weak spot between the creature's armored legs. His attack landed. The creature shrieked in pain, but it was not enough to bring it down yet. It was a start. Alex quickly repositioned himself, ducking into the shadows and waiting for the creature to make its next move. He was learning how to fight like them, to move like them. And the longer he stayed in the swamp, the more he realized that in order to survive, he had to become one of the swamp's apex predators, or die trying. The battle with the alien creature was far from over. Alex could feel the pulse of adrenaline surging through his body as the creature reeled from his strike. Its shriek echoed across the swamp like a warning to the other predators lurking in the shadows. Alex knew this was a pivotal moment. If he failed here, he would lose his advantage and be nothing more than another victim to the swamp's endless hunger. But the creature wasn't backing down. It twisted its massive body and snapped at the air with a powerful set of jaws that looked capable of crushing anything in its path. Alex barely dodged its strike, his heart thundering in his chest as the air around him seemed to crackle with tension. Every movement felt like it could be his last. He darted in and out of the shadows, using his speed and knowledge of the terrain to stay one step ahead of the beast. His instincts were fully awake now, guiding him with an edge he hadn't known he possessed. Each step was calculated, each movement precise. He could feel his senses heightening, as if the swamp itself had become an extension of his body. The creature was relentless, but so was Alex. He moved with a fluidity that he hadn't thought possible, his body adapting to the environment in ways that made him feel more like one of the swamp's own predators and less like a human fighting for survival. The creature lunged again, but Alex was ready this time. He sprang from his position and leaped onto the beast's back. With the agility of a creature born to hunt, he drove his spear deep into the creature's exposed flank. A perfect strike. The creature howled in agony. But Alex wasn't done yet. He twisted the spear and drove it deeper. The creature staggered, its movements slowing as the blood began to seep from the wound. Its once terrifying eyes now filled with something close to panic. But it was too late. Alex had won the fight. His body moved instinctively, pulling the spear from the creature's side and stepping back to observe his victory. His breath came in ragged gasps, but his mind was clearer than ever. This battle was only a taste of what was to come. He had just crossed a threshold. The swamp had tested him, and he had passed. But in doing so, he realized he had become something else, something that was no longer just human. He could feel it in his bones. He had adapted, but not just in body. His mind was shifting as well. He had become a hunter like the others in the swamp, his humanity slipping away slowly but surely. Alex stood over the defeated creature, taking in the moment, but also acknowledging the truth that the swamp had claimed a part of him. Something deep inside told him that the path ahead would require more than just survival. It would require embracing the swamp's darker truths to survive in this place. He would need to fully accept what he had become, the hybrid between man and monster, the apex predator that the swamp had forged him into. He could feel the call of the environment beckoning him to sink deeper into its heart, to learn more, to adapt further. But he also understood that there was a price to pay for this transformation. The line between human and beast was becoming more blurred with every passing moment. The deeper Alex ventured into the swamp, the more he realized that the true test was not just survival, but evolution. The swamp was not a place that tolerated weakness. It was a place that required its inhabitants to adapt or perish. To thrive in this alien world, he had to become something more than he ever thought possible. The battle with the creature had been a brutal lesson in strength and cunning, but it had also awakened something within him, something primal. He could feel the transformation unfolding in his body. His muscles were stronger, his senses sharper, his thoughts clearer, and yet every change came with a cost. Every step he took deeper into the heart of Drexer made him question how much of his humanity remained. There was a voice in his head urging him to move faster, to learn more, to become like the creatures that ruled this place, to embrace the swamp's call. But another part of him resisted the pull. He still remembered who he was, where he came from, but the swamp didn't care about his memories. It only cared about what he could become. Alex pressed on through the thick undergrowth, the trees looming over him like silent sentinels, their twisted branches creating an almost impenetrable canopy overhead. The air was thick with humidity and the ever-present scent of decay. The swamp seemed to pulse with life, but there was an emptiness to it, as well, a coldness that ran beneath the surface. The deeper he went, the more alien the world became around him. Strange creatures that he had never seen before flitted in and out of the shadows, their eyes gleaming with intelligence and curiosity. Alex had learned to move silently through the swamp, but now he felt watched, as if unseen eyes were always tracking his movements. His instincts screamed at him to keep moving, to never stop. But something was different about this place. The air was heavier now, as if the swamp itself was testing him, waiting for him to make a mistake. The ground shifted beneath his feet, soft mud giving way to something more solid, something unnatural. Alex froze, his eyes scanning the terrain ahead. Something wasn't right. There was a faint ripple in the air, A distortion he couldn't explain. The landscape seemed to shimmer for a moment, and then the ground in front of him opened up, revealing a massive sinkhole filled with thick, dark water. Alex's heart skipped a beat as he took in the sight. He had seen sinkholes before, but this was different. This was not natural. The air around it felt wrong, almost charged with an eerie energy. He could sense that this was no ordinary trap the swamp had set for him. This was something far worse. His instincts screamed at him to turn back, but he couldn't. The sinkhole was not just a danger, it was a challenge, the next stage of the test. Alex had no choice but to face it, to understand what lay beneath the surface. He crouched low to the ground, peering into the abyss. The water below was unnaturally still, but Alex could feel a pull, a sense of something ancient, something waiting for him beneath the dark surface. Without warning, the water began to bubble and churn as something massive stirred within it. The swamp was alive with danger, and Alex was about to discover just how deep its darkness ran. He didn't hesitate as he stepped forward, his spear ready in his hand, his heart pounding with both fear and determination. The swamp had pushed him this far, and now it was time to face whatever horrors it had waiting for him in its depths. The water churned violently beneath Alex as the creature beneath the surface stirred its presence, a shadow in the depths of the sinkhole. He could feel the pulse of something enormous just out of sight. The dark water began to ripple and bubble with a force that shook the ground beneath his feet. His grip on the spear tightened, instinct telling him to stand his ground and face the unknown. With resolve, he had survived too much to back down now. He shifted his weight, preparing for the next move. Whatever it was that lurked in the depths of the swamp was not just another predator. It was something ancient, something that had long since mastered the art of survival. Alex could feel its power, its ancient malice, calling to him through the dark water. The air around him felt charged with a low hum, an oppressive weight that pressed down on his shoulders. His pulse quickened as the water began to foam around the edges of the sinkhole. Suddenly, the surface broke with a deafening roar, and a massive form emerged from the depths. It was like nothing Alex had ever seen before. Its body was an enormous writhing mass of dark scales and twisted tendrils. Its eyes gleamed like glowing orbs, its mouth a cavernous maw filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. The creature rose from the water like a dark leviathan towering over him, its movements slow but deliberate as it assessed Alex with predatory focus. Alex's heart pounded in his chest, and his thoughts raced. There was no way he could outrun this thing, no way to hide, no way to overpower it. It was too powerful, too dangerous. The only chance he had was to fight it on his terms. But how could he possibly stand against something so ancient, so deadly? Alex stepped back, instinctively keeping his distance, his eyes never leaving the creature's glowing eyes, as it began to circle him, its massive form moving with a strange grace. Despite its size, its long tendrils slithering through the air like living snakes, the creature's mouth opened wide, revealing a deep throat that seemed to pulse with some kind of dark energy. Its growl resonated in the very air around him like the sound of the earth itself groaning in pain. Alex knew that this was the test. This was what the swamp had been preparing him for, not just a battle for survival, but a battle for his very soul. It wanted him to become like it or perish, and the swamp would not tolerate anything less than complete adaptation. But Alex wasn't going to give in, not now, not after everything he had endured. He gripped his spear tightly, his mind shifting into survival mode. Once again, he had learned how to fight like the creatures of Drexer, how to move with precision, how to think like a predator, and he would need every ounce of that skill. Now the creature lunged with terrifying speed, its tendrils snapping toward him. Alex darted to the side, narrowly avoiding the attack. As the tendrils struck the ground with a resounding thud, he couldn't outrun it, but he didn't need to. He just needed to outthink it. He waited for the next move, knowing the creature would be slow to strike again. And when it did, he was ready. As its massive mouth opened to deliver a killing blow, Alex lunged forward with a swift and deadly motion, his spear finding its mark deep inside the creature's throat. He twisted the spear, and the creature let out a guttural roar of pain as it thrashed violently in the water. But Alex didn't relent. He held on, driving the spear deeper, feeling the pulse of the creature's blood against his hands. The swamp itself seemed to tremble, as if acknowledging his victory in that moment. But Alex knew this battle wasn't just about defeating the creature, it was about overcoming the swamp itself, about surviving the test that it had set before him. And in doing so, he understood something far deeper about his own transformation, about how the swamp had molded him into something more, something monstrous, and yet something alive. The creature's thrashing slowed as the last of its life drained away into the murky water. Alex stood over its fallen body, panting heavily, his body soaked in sweat and swamp water. The echo of the battle still hung in the air, and the silence that followed was almost deafening as the massive form of the creature sank back into the depths. Alex didn't let his guard down, not yet. He had won the battle, but the swamp was far from finished with him. It would never be finished. The truth of Drexer was clear now. The swamp was a living thing, constantly shifting, constantly testing, and he had been transformed by it. No longer just a human, no longer just an outsider, but something more, something forged in the crucible of its trials. Alex looked down at the spear in his hand, the blade still dripping with the creature's blood. He had killed it. But at what cost? He could feel the weight of the transformation in his bones. His senses heightened, his mind sharper than ever. But with each passing moment, it felt as though something was slipping away from him, something human. His thoughts flickered back to Earth, to the life he had left behind, the people he once knew. But the memories felt distant now, like the shadow of a dream, fading with the light of morning. The swamp had taken so much from him, yet it had also given him something far more powerful than he could have ever imagined. Survival in this world meant more than just living. It meant becoming. It meant embracing the darkness and learning how to thrive within it. Alex took a deep breath as he let go of the spear, his body instinctively searching for the next challenge. The swamp was endless and its trials were far from over. He had learned to fight it, learned to become a part of it. But there were still dangers lurking in the unseen corners of this alien world, and he would have to keep adapting or be swallowed whole like so many others before him. The ground beneath his feet shifted once more, and Alex's eyes darted around, his senses alert to every change. The swamp was watching him, its strange rhythm, calling him to follow. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew that there was no turning back. The path he had walked had already changed him irrevocably. He was not the man who had landed on Drexer weeks ago. He was something new, something forged in the trials of the swamp, a hunter, an apex predator, and a survivor. But even as he embraced his new form, he couldn't help but wonder what it would cost him in the end. Would he remain Alex, or would the swamp claim his humanity entirely? Alex took another step forward, and then another, moving deeper into the heart of Drexer, with no destination in mind, except survival. The swamp would continue to test him, push him to the limits of what he could become, and in the end, he would either conquer it or be consumed by it. He didn't know what awaited him, but he understood one thing: he had become the monster the swamp had forged him into, and now it was his domain.